Stanley Jordan, welcome to Australian Musician.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be with you.
Yeah, you've been out and about playing. You were in Montenegro, I believe, last week. How are those shows?
I just got back from there. Amazing. It was my first time playing there. And I could tell as soon as the plane was coming in and I saw the mountains, it was going to be an inspiring place. And it was great. We had great audiences there. And my understanding is that it's not a big jazz market right now, but you would never know that from the people who came to the show. So I feel good. I feel like we're making a contribution.
Yeah, that's great. We're excited here because you're coming to Australia in August. Will you be playing solo or with a band with this tour?
I'm going to be playing solo.
Okay.
And my solo show is something that's really close to my heart. I feel the most connection with my audience when I'm playing my solo show. Yeah. And I love playing with bands, and I got some great projects with bands, and we can talk about that too. But I feel like the best way to really kind of experience the core, sort of the musical core of what I do is to see my solo show.
This will be your first headline tour of Australia. Have you been here before with playing with other artists?
I don't remember playing there before. I did one thing that was like sort of an industry event. It was a private event years and years ago through a record label. But in terms of something like this is the first time I've done something like this. And I'm going to be doing my show, my full show. We're going to be going to several cities. And so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Recently, you've been doing your take on Jimi Hendrix in your Stanley Plays Jimmy shows. Will you be playing any of that material on this tour, or is that a completely different show?
There's a good chance that I'll play some Hendrix music because I've been playing his music since I was a little kid, So I'd say that's a good chance. It's different from the Stanley Plays Jimmy show. If I were to play one of his songs, then that's just me doing an interpretation as me. But when I do the Stanley Plays Jimmy show, I'm approaching it as an actor as well as a musician. And so I'm actually playing the role of Jimi Hendrix in the show. And the concept of the show is that we are imagining what he might be doing if he were still playing today. So the show definitely has room for creativity, and I definitely put my interpretation, it's got my spin on it and my sort of musical sensibilities, I guess, because I'm interpreting it. This is my fantasy of Jimi Hendrix. So I get to do it whatever, however I want, but it still has to be, it has to really connect in a way where it kind of feels like it could be something Jimmy would actually do. So, I don't play any old thing. Whereas when I do my show and I play some of his songs, I'm totally free to do stuff that I don't think Jimmy would do. You never know, but I'm not trying to, create that impression.
Yeah, you were not only a fan of Jimmy's playing, but and his music, but also Jimmy, the human being, and the message that he carried. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think I've got a glare on my glasses. Does that get rid of the glare?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, Jimmy just, through his lyrics and just his whole thought process and the way he expressed himself, and just, I think he was just really brilliant. And he was a big inspiration to me. I mean, I can show you pictures of me back when I was 12, where you can see that I already was being inspired by Jimmy. And that's part of what this show was about, and what I try to do with that show is to try to get across more dimensions of Jimmy. So yeah, it is another thing, and maybe someday, I mean, I would love to bring that show to Australia too. We can maybe look forward to that sometime in the future. Yeah. But right now, it's my solo show. That's really, really my core. I think it's the best way to start.
So how do you approach your set list for a tour like this?
I'm very much in the moment. when I'm playing, and when I'm doing my solo show, it gives me a chance maybe to be even more responsive to the moment. So I don't always go on stage with a set list. In fact, sometimes what I do is I just walk out and I just start playing, and maybe it becomes an intro to a song, and after a while I realize, oh, I know what song this is, and then I go and I do that song. Or it might be a completely free improv. Sometimes I find that if I start out with something really creative and spontaneous at the beginning, at the very beginning of the show, then I feel like it sets a stage, so the whole set after that just has another level of openness and creativity. But if I start out playing regular songs and then I try later to do something that's purely creative, it doesn't feel the same. It's I don't know. Sometimes I like the set overall more if I go out there without knowing what it's going to be, and then it surprises me.
Is it easy to read a room and know what the audience is getting into, apart from the applause?
I would say probably, yeah. I mean, just considering that I've been doing this for so long, the first concert that I remember doing where I was sensitive to the people. I mean, this was really my first performance that I can remember, other than just playing, for family. Was when I was 10. We had recital. I was a classical piano student, and we did a recital, all the students of my teacher, and I performed a piece that I composed, and I really got an amazing lesson about what music was all about from that first show, because the people, the way that they reacted to it, it wasn't just, oh, that was very good, very nice pat on the back kind of thing. But they had this dreamy look on their faces, like the music had transported them to another zone or something. And so the thing that amazed me was that somehow the music really touched them. And they weren't just looking at me and telling me that I did a good performance. They were feeling something in their own world, in their own space. And I was really taken with the power that music has. I mean, I guess I should have known, because I had a couple of experiences where I was in the audience and the music hit me like that. But that was the first time that I saw that I could do a show and have that kind of effect on people. So that was the beginning, I think. And sometimes you get out there and it's a tough audience, and you have to win them over. Sometimes it's not as easy as that first recital that I did. But since I've been doing it for so long, I guess that first recital was, I don't know, something like 53 years ago. So I guess at this point, it's my comfort zone. Even on my worst day, my worst possible performance, I'm still in my comfort zone. This is what I know. This is what I do, and even if the performance is a disaster, I'm still having a wonderful time because I'm in my zone playing music.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe you've been involved in a disaster. You're known for your touch technique, style of playing. When was the last time you picked up a guitar and played with a pick?
I actually play with a pick most of the time on my Stanley Plays Jimmy show. And in the tour that I just did in Montenegro, so that Made in New York Jazz Festival, it's kind of an all-star festival because they have a lot of different artists. A lot of them are from New York. I lived in New York for a long time. But New York is kind of a running theme, at least. Anyway, so people play together. And they invited me up to do What's Going On, the Marvin Gaye song with Leslie Harrison on vocals, Cyrus Chestnut on piano, John Lee on bass, and Vince Ector on drums. And What's Going On, I mean, given the best place that I could put the guitar in that ensemble, it felt much better to use a pick and basically play like, traditional rhythm style guitar, because I could find a niche because I keep pushing that groove. There's a percussive thing that you get with a pick. The pick is definitely more percussive than the touch technique. So for something like that, the pick definitely works better.
Yeah. So what do you actually tour with now? How many guitars and what amps are you playing through?
So I bring one guitar generally. It's my VJ arpege. Patrice VJ has been making these guitars for quite some time, and I love the accuracy of the instrument and how I can get my action really low. Because when the strings are close to the frets, it's a lot easier to use the touch technique in the way that I do. I mean, if your approach is kind of more rhythmic, sort of like more of a Michael Hedges, Khaki King approach, then maybe you want your action higher because you have more of the dynamic range of being able to hit the strings different ways and stuff. But for the sort of precise counterpoint stuff that I do, it's really helpful to have the action down. And what I find is that with the VJ, I can get those strings down pretty far and yet still have a good range of dynamics and still have a good amount of warmth to my sound. So that's what I've been doing. And I do mostly use the touch technique. I'll do things like, even in my solo show, I'll do things where I include some strumming and finger picking and stuff, depending on the musical moment. And mostly my guitar setup for the touch technique.
Yeah. Did it take you a long time, a lot of experimentation of guitars and amp combinations before you were really happy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still experimenting. I can't say even now that I'm completely happy. One thing that I really like doing is I like going into the, okay, I've got my effects pedals, and then from my pedals, I have a really high quality direct box, and I just go right to the house. And instead of getting a regular amp, what I'll often do is I'll have them put a monitor speaker on the stage behind me, facing the audience. So it's like an amp. It gives you that point source, which is especially important. Like if I'm, let's say, playing on stage with other musicians, and each person, you can look at them and there's a sound coming from at least near where they are. So if I want to be compatible with the other musicians, to see there's other guitarists, they have amps, I need that stage fill. I can't just have my sound coming out through the side speakers. But the nice thing about doing it this way, through the line signal and a monitor instead of using a guitar amp, is that I get the most full range sound. I get it's more like a hi-fi guitar sound. So all those little nuances really come through. There are certain amps that I like for certain purposes when it really works. So like, for example, sometimes I'll use DV Mark amps, and one of the things I like about some of the DV Mark amps is that they give you a really high output, but they're really small and light, and they've got a really nice warmth. And I can carry it, in my suitcase if I want to bring it with me, just the head, and then I hook up to an external speaker when I get where I'm going, and that gives me a good sound and a good range. So if I want the amp thing, there's a certain kind of compression that an amp gives. Sometimes when you overdrive it, it pushes it in a way that a pedal can't do, and in a way that you can't get out of that monitor speaker. If I'm doing something like, let's say I'm sitting in with a group where it's more of a rock-oriented kind of a thing, then I might want a more rock amp on stage to give me a more compatible sound with the group that I'm playing with, So maybe a Fender Twin. Then again, the Fender Twin speaker in particular is a really good mate for that DV Mark amp head. So, there's a lot of combinations, and it kind of depends on what it is, what the project is that I'm doing at the time.
Yeah. In general, what do you do with a few minutes before you go on stage, and what do you enjoy doing after a show?
The time before a show is really crucial because I have to get prepared on every possible level. So I want to make sure that I'm well fed and rested and all that good stuff. And also, I need to make sure that I have a real sort of clear focus on the music. So I can't sit around and socialize. I'm not one of these cats that hangs out with everyone. And, I can a little bit to a certain extent, but I got to get into the zone, man. I have to really get into the music. And, it depends on the gig. Like if it's more of like a big sound and a big party kind of an atmosphere that we're trying to create, then I might want to hang out with my mates before the show and really get that party spirit going with the band first. Like I said, it depends. Now, definitely for the shows that I'm doing in Australia, what's my solo show, I'm definitely going to need to get into that zone. There's physical routine that I do too. It's not always the same, but there's certain kinds of stretches that I'll tend to do. Overall limbering, like if I'm limber overall, then it's just so much easier to play. It's amazing. I think physical tension is very much underappreciated, but that's not how I want to say it, because I mean appreciated in a bad way. Like I don't think people realize how debilitating physical tension can be. And I think if you get completely relaxed, there's no such thing as getting completely relaxed. If you were completely relaxed, you'd be dead, basically. But it's, very relaxed, and there's an optimal relaxation point. And most of us are far above that point in terms of the level of tension that we operate at. Think of it like what we call the signal to noise ratio, like in an audio system. Because we were talking about amps and all that, and you've got to adjust your gain structure so that you can keep the noise level down. So you're talking about the signal to noise ratio. It's the same thing within us, like in our nervous system. The noise would be all of the signals passing through our bodies that are not part of what we're trying to do here. They're not helpful. They're lingering stuff from before, just the noise of our nervous system. And if you can get rid of that noise, then the signal comes through so much clearly. So even like, tension in my knee, for example, could affect my thought process because it's dragging down the processing. It's pulling, I'm sort of using a computer analogy, but, it's using up processor cycles of my brain, And the thing is, often musicians get used to that and they do fine in that environment. But man, when you clear that out, it really makes a noticeable difference. Sometimes I'll go to a float tank. I don't know if you guys have a lot of places there where there's float tanks, but that'd be a good thing to look at. I remember the first time I went to a float tank, I had a gig that night, so it was a great way to test it out. And oh my God, I can't believe the show that I did that night. I was able to play, I don't know, I kid you not, like 50% faster than usual. And not only that, every single note that I played was a note that I consciously chose. Like my brain was totally keeping up with my fingers. I wasn't just, wiggling my fingers around the guitar, but I was actually like really making music. It was amazing. So just kind of sort of, snapshotting experiences like that reminds me that I have to get as close to that zone as I can. And if I do, then I know it's going to be a good show.
Yeah. What about recording? Are you working on a recording at the moment?
So I have a new album that's finished. It's called Feather in the Wind. And I have to say, it's really my favorite to listen to of all my albums. I know people always say that, but if you check the records, you won't find that I've said that about every record I did. But this one, it's really wonderful. I think it has so much heart, and a lot of the sort of the genesis of that music came from some difficult experiences over a period of several years. Just a lot of it, loss and change, losing people who were so important to me. And So the album ended up becoming sort of all about a reclamation of what's precious in life, and doing that by actually kind of celebrating the things that we do to find constancy, and in the face of loss, in the face of change. It's like, what do you do? How do you rise above it? And so we all find ways, and so that celebration of that relentless movement forward, because this life, and you have to move forward, and finding the silver lining in every cloud, those sort of things. That's really what the album is about. And so I look forward to sharing that. And a lot of people are going through difficult times now with the climate stuff. I know you guys have been having issues with fires. There's been a lot of issues worldwide with COVID. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And I think that we're all kind of looking for some sense of comfort and some sense of feeling that we're in this together. So I really feel that this album really tries to hold that space and hold that sense.
Yeah. What about bucket list projects, things in the back of your mind that you want to get to one day?
Oh, I love that question. Wow. I don't think we have time to get to my whole list, but I'll just mention a couple of things. Okay, so I have this long-term project. I've been working on a concerto for guitar and orchestra, and using the touch technique on guitar, and I think it's going to be done. Well, I'd like to finish it by the end of this year. I'm not going to put the pressure to do that, but I'm really excited to work on it. Some of my favorite composers for the symphony, Bela Bartok, Tchaikovsky. I remember when I was 9 or 10, I think I was 10, and I was talking earlier about hearing music that really touched me. We went to see a performance of his Pathétique symphony, and it was the first movement, and the first movement is really kind of serene and beautiful, and it's just very sort of calm and setting the stage, and every note is something to savor. And I loved it, but I was starting to kind of fall asleep, and my eyes were starting to close. And just right before my eyes closed, see that little slit in my eyes, I was watching the conductor, and suddenly I saw the conductor wave the baton with a flourish, and the whole orchestra went pow, and it was disturbing. I mean, the sound was too loud, it was too strong, it was unsettling, and at the same time it was thrilling, and it was the most amazing sound I had ever heard in my life. And that was the moment that I fell in love with the orchestra. That one double forte, whatever, it just was a life-changing moment for me, and wow, the orchestra. So I hear orchestrations, and I try to orchestrate with the guitar, and I can kind of do that to a degree, and certainly the touch technique brings some new possibilities for that. But having the instrument with the backdrop of an actual full orchestra, I just can't wait to have that experience.
Yeah. Well, Stanley, it's been wonderful to talk to you, and we look forward to seeing you in Australia in August.
Great. I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you so much.